promoting and projecting Kenya's leadership in the peace and security arena, in multilateral arena, in economic diplomacy. And the hallmark of that conversations and engagements, as you know, have been the number of state visits that have taken place in the country, the number of business summits that we've held, the number of conferences that we've hosted, the number of candidatures that we've put out and done successfully, and the number of peace summits that we are hosting here. But like Rosaline, I do not wish to preempt what the Cabinet Secretary will be speaking to. Allow me, with a lot of respect, Your Excellency, to invite you to address members of the media. Thank you very much.
Good morning, or is it good afternoon? Just about. Good afternoon. I mean, good morning. When the PS Ngoy was talking about the delay, I may be the culprit here, but for a good reason. We had the visiting Minister for Foreign Affairs from Ethiopia, and we've just finished some engagement with him. Dr. Singoy, Principal Secretary, State Department for Foreign Affairs, Madam Rosaline Jogu, Principal Secretary for the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, and our colleagues who are here with us, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. We thought that as we come to the close of the year, it may be good to just have a snippet into what did the year look like. And this might also help you when you're doing your reviews and speaking to some of the issues that were either hits or misses, the way you like calling them in the media world. So we thought we better speak our case as a ministry, so that we can have a reasonable input into your articles, but from an informed viewpoint. The other thing that I want to highlight is that it's a fairly comprehensive statement. I'll try and go through it carefully, but our media people are going to share the soft copy with you. So if something passes, don't think it's lost. There shall be the statement given to you. It's detailed, and later maybe we can take just about 2 or 3 questions, and that one I will also ask my colleagues to help me. So if it is diaspora, Madame is here. If it is other matters of foreign policy, Dr. Singoy is here, so they'll anchor me. So let me go through it right away. I am delighted to welcome you all to this media briefing session at the outset. This briefing is in line with our commitment to keep Kenyans fully appraised on our engagements as an accountability tool to the public. As we approach the closure of 2024, I will reflect on key highlights of our achievement in advancing Kenya's foreign policy agenda, noting that 2024 has been significant and eventful in many ways, but also equally exciting. Guided by our foreign policy goals, a key mandate is strengthening bilateral and multilateral relations, high-level visits, inbound and outbound, are critical lever to facilitate meaningful dialogue aimed at enhancing relations that include trade, investment opportunities in technology, agriculture, and infrastructure. Notable among them are these: the state visit to Japan by His Excellency the President early in the year, during which an exchange of notes was signed, providing a grant of Kenya shillings 3 billion to enhance the KEMRI research facility. A state visit from Uganda resulted in the signing of a tripartite agreement on the importation of transit of refined petroleum products, the resolution of several non-tariff barriers, and the establishment of a landmark agreement for the extension of the standard gauge railway to Malaba by Kenya from Malaba to Kampala by Uganda. There was also the official visit to the United Republic of Tanzania, during which 14 non-tariff barriers were resolved. There was a state visit to Ghana, where multiple memoranda of understanding were signed. There was a state visit to Zimbabwe, where Kenya secured corporate tax exemptions for Kenyaways, among others. There was also the state visit to the United States of America, which centered on key areas of cooperation, including trade and investment, climate change, security, health, and technology, and the designation of Kenya as a major non-NATO partner, reinforcing Kenya's role as a leader in this region. There was a visit to Ethiopia focused on revitalizing the 2012 Special Status Agreement. There was a state visit from Somalia, which facilitated the opening of vital trade channels, expanding aviation connectivity, and enhancing market access. There was a state visit from Poland. An MOU was signed regarding the tax solidarity program and unlocking financing of various projects. These include in the dairy sector and even in the energy sector, the rural electrification program. There was also a visit to South Sudan, and the main focus here was on peace building to revitalize the Tumaini initiative, as well as the development of the regional infrastructure under the LAPSET. Further, in the light of growing demand, we have also expanded our diplomatic footprint by opening a new embassy in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, Rabat in Morocco, and a consulate general in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. In the year ahead, we shall open a consulate general in Guangzhou, China, as well as in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. On the multilateral front, Kenya has made significant strides in strengthening her multilateral engagements through active participation in various international organizations and fora. We have positioned ourselves as a leader in driving collaborative solutions to global challenges and ensuring that our voice is heard on the international stage. On the sidelines of the recent 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, dubbed the Summit of the Future in September, His Excellency President Ruto held a high-level event on the Global Plastic Treaty, which Kenya co-hosted with the UNEP and the International Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution Secretariat, and the inaugural steering committee meeting of African Green Industrialization Initiative, AGII. During the event, Kenya advanced critical national and continental positions, including the Nairobi Declaration on the Africa Climate Summit, the Africa Renewable Energy Strategy, and the specific outcomes of the 28th Conference of Parties, that is COP28, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change General Assembly, positions that we continue to advance at the recently concluded COP29 in Baku, which resulted in an increase of climate financing from $100 billion to $300 billion. Additionally, Nairobi's stature as a diplomatic multilateral hub has grown. It now hosts 109 resident diplomatic missions and 148 intergovernmental and international organizations. It should not escape your mind that also recently we have gazetted a new category of permits which continue to consolidate Nairobi as a multilateral hub. And that is already with you, it is gazetted, and an earlier statement was issued. This year, for record, Nairobi has hosted the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA 6, the 54th session of the Codex Committee on Food Hygiene, the inaugural Africa Climate Summit, and the inaugural Africa Climate Summit, ACS 23, and Connected Africa 2024 Summit, CAS 2024. There was the Africa Summit for International Development Association Replenishment. That is the IDA 21 replenishment. That was a very significant meeting that took place here. And we have very firm indications that as a result of that call that was conducted here in Nairobi, the World Bank has been able to raise over $100 billion for the IDA 21. So that meeting here, hosted by the President and the President of the World Bank, was extremely significant because the IDA 21 is the concessionary window to help 75 countries globally that fall within the bracket of being IDA recipients. There's the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit. Then we had the annual meeting of the African Development Bank. And this, again, was significant because there was the ADB replenishment, number 17, and the call was to increase the capital to ADB from $10 billion to $25 billion. That, again, was a very important milestone for Kenya. On regional and continental integration, there was even the inaugural School Meals Coalition Task Force. Remember, Kenya has established itself as a leader in the school feeding program, working with international partners. In fact, why they came here is that Kenya has become a benchmark for effective and successful school feeding programs. On regional integration and continental integration, we have placed a high premium and prioritized regional and continental collaboration. Our active participation in the African Union, the East African Community, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, the International Conference on the Great Lakes, and the COMESA have been active. And indeed, this was crowned recently with President William Ruto becoming the chair of the East African Community Summit. Kenya's leadership in this institution has fostered stronger ties with neighbors and advanced our shared vision for stability. Notable highlights include the election of the President, William Ruto, in February 2024 to spearhead the institutional reforms of the African Union that would aid in the realization of the Africa we want, as outlined in Agenda 2063. In addition to being chairman of the Committee of the Africa Heads of State and Government on Climate Change. Additionally, in recognition of our role in the AU, we have offered the Right Honorable Raila Odinga for the African Union Commission chairperson, and we are now looking positively towards the mid-February 2025, when all things being equal, we would be looking confidently towards his election as the AUC chair. Turning to the economic diplomacy, Our engagement with foreign investors has resulted in increased funding for small and medium enterprises, which are vital for job creation and poverty alleviation. Key milestones in our economic diplomacy include a commitment to build secure and resilient supply chains in the semiconductor industry during the state visit to the United States of America. Kenya is the first African country to benefit from the International Technology, Security and Innovation Fund created by the CHIPS and Science Act 2022 of the United States. Additionally, Coca-Cola announced that they'll be enhancing their investment here by another $175 million. And then the USAID announced a grant of $600,000 for Vivo Fashion Group. Another key plank in this year is the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation FOCAC Summit in September 2024. Highlights are as follows. Kenya deposited the instrument of accession to the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. Kenya also signed a bilateral agreement with China Development Bank for the construction of 15 rural roads across the country, which will stimulate economic activities and job opportunities. Kenya also held discussions with China for continued collaboration for regional infrastructure projects under the Belt and Road Initiative, including the construction of Rironi-Mau Summit Expressway, and fourth, the extension of the SGR to Kisumu and Malaba. At the state visit to Japan in February, Japan agreed to provide 15 billion Kenya shillings towards the Olkaria geothermal development project and an additional 1 billion for the production of medical oxygen. Further, Japan committed to continued financing of both Dogokundu infrastructure ecosystem, which would attract entrepreneurs from all over the world, and of course, the Mombasa Gateway Bridge at an amount of 260 billion. And let me emphasize that these are concessionary funds on these programs, so that we do not mistake and misinterpret the conversation. The interest rates are below 1%, and repayment can go up to 30 to 40 years. While when we came to the Korea-Africa Summit, Kenya joined the International Vaccine Institute as the 26th state party. In the same forum, the International Vaccine Institute undertook to elevate IVI's country office in Nairobi to serve as the headquarters of advancing vaccine end-to-end capabilities initiative in Africa. This, as stated earlier, will enhance Nairobi as a multilateral hub, create jobs, and skill up knowledge in vaccine production. Additionally, Kenya signed a loan agreement for the Konza Digital City, Media City, amounting to $130 million under the Korea Economic Development Cooperation Fund. In addition, a grant of $4.4 million to implement the K-Rice project in Kenya was signed. In September, at the sidelines of the second Indonesia-Africa Forum, the ministry further facilitated the signing of the grant agreement between Kenya's Biovax Institute and the Indonesia Biopharma. This is to enhance production of vaccines locally in Kenya and facilitate the realization of the better agenda towards universal healthcare in Kenya. Peace and security. We have maintained our commitment, and right now there is the ongoing Tumaini Peace Process Initiative, spearheaded by the President, which holds promise for the stability of South Sudan. And indeed, even this morning, as I was meeting with the minister from Ethiopia, they did sign an agreement with Somalia on the area where they had some challenge. And one of the things that he did acknowledge formally was that what was concluded in Turkey was actually started here in Nairobi by these good people and the people of Kenya. So it is bearing fruit. I also wish to remind you that we have so far 381 troops in Haiti, and it is our commitment that we shall be systematically, once the logistics are in place, dispatch the remaining 616 to assist in the peace efforts in Haiti. On the diaspora engagements, we have continued to sign and negotiate bilateral labor agreements. We've done so with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Germany, Austria, and negotiations are ongoing with the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Oman, and Canada. This is an ongoing activity, and not too long ago, as we were marking our anniversary, there was a lot of detail that was granted to yourselves by the Department of Diaspora on the achievements being made and the first opportunities that are being initiated for Kenyans out there. 2 weeks ago, we also launched the revised Kenya foreign policy document, dubbed Twiga Diplomacy, aligning Kenya's diplomatic efforts with global trends and challenges. The policy document will further be translated into Kiswahili to enhance awareness in what has come to be popularly known as foreign policy mashinani. This is to ensure accessibility and ownership across the country. Thereafter, a nationwide sensitization campaign will be rolled out to engage citizens on the significance of the policy in shaping Kenya's future and showcase the opportunities on how they can plug into its implementation. As part of its effective implementation and uptake, a sessional paper has been drafted, and it is actually currently just getting the brushing up, and it will be presented to Cabinet and subsequently to Parliament for further consideration. If I come back to the State Department for Diaspora again, a comprehensive mobility and migration partnership agreement between the Republic of Kenya and the Federal Republic of Germany, where Kenya will compete for 250,000 jobs. Now, I want to really explain this, because some people decided to be a little bit mischievous and give the impression that Germany has given Kenya 250,000 jobs. That is not the case. Please get the facts right. They have a shortfall of 250,000 opportunities, not exclusive to Kenya, but also with other countries. So it is up to us to work smoothly, collectively, and efficiently so that we can get a reasonable share of these 250,000 opportunities. Please, my dear brothers and sisters, make sure we convey that message correctly and not distort the facts. The bilateral agreement between the government of Kenya and Austria has also been signed. There's also a memorandum of understanding with the Frederick Naumann Foundation for the, when we want to create provision of remote jobs for Kenyans. And please also tie this to the recent work permit that has been allowed of the digital nomad, where Kenya is now making sure that we can provide greater access for young men and women who are savvy in technology to engage with the rest of the world. We have secured the placement of 1,733 Kenyans in the US, United Kingdom, and Germany in various fields such as hospitality, medical, and agricultural sectors. The department has also launched the Mkulima Maju program, which has seen 2,000 young agricultural students from various entities in Kenya work in mechanized farms in the UK. This program has also seen the placement of 67 teachers to the United States through the Placement Consultancy, a Kenya Diaspora-owned recruitment agency in Maryland, the US. And I was there to flag off a section of these teachers as they left for the US. There are other areas that cover agriculture in Canada, and we're also looking at other markets. So the details will be in the statement. The Diaspora Department also organized job fairs in different counties as follows. Jamhuri National Job Fair in Nairobi County here, that was on the 5th to 11th of December. In Vihiga County, there's a job fair held in Mbale High School from 28th to 30th of August. Embu County Job Fair at Moi Stadium, 12th to 14th of June 2024. And the 4th Diaspora Town Hall Job Fair in Kwale on 23rd July 2024. The department established the Diaspora Skills and Technology Transfer Program, a platform for the Kenyan diaspora to participate in nation building through skills they acquired abroad during their stay. The program will be piloted through Kenyatta National Hospital, the Kenyatta University Teaching Referral Research Hospital, Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, and the Department of Medical Services of the Nairobi County Government. So, ladies and gentlemen, this document is going to come to you so that you can have a fair opportunity to look at what the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs has been able to achieve in the year 2024 and the areas of focus. And I want to assure you that as we take a short break, like every other Kenyan, we'll be raring to go starting January so that we can continue serving the Kenyans diligently, fairly, and with all the necessary patriotism. So as I conclude, let me also take this opportunity on behalf of the entire ministry and the team that you see here and the many others who are here and also in the embassies. Let me wish Kenyans a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. And mukienda, tafadhali, help us, as we said. Tunataka foreign policy ingie mashinani. But you can see for yourselves, as I narrated, it takes a lot of backroom negotiation, a lot of hours of commitment of looking at detail before we reach closure on very, very important financial agreements and investment programs for this country. So apart from the peace initiative, this ministry is on the front line, is the first port of call when these conversations are taking place. And ultimately, it also becomes the last port of call before the implementation of the various ministries now goes on with the various programs that we will have partnered with other friends. Asanteni sana, Mungu awabariki. Sasa maswali, mpeleke kwa Madam na mpeleke kwa PS. Asante.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for a very detailed report. Perhaps having wished us a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year, we should reciprocate by giving him a very warm round of applause. I want to all of us really to, in togetherness, we applaud him for that statement. Now that we are moving to the next point, we'll have 3 questions, and I would urge our colleagues, 3, first of all, identify yourself by name and which media house you're coming from, then you can move to the question. First question.
Good afternoon. My name is Hilary Kimu from East African Diaspora Desk at Daily Nation. My question is to you, Madam PS. Are you aware that there are 5 Kenyan women who are locked up in Saudi Arabia and they can't leave? One of them had to cut an umbilical cord to give birth. The reason is because they don't have papers. What are you doing to bring them back home? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Kirobi from TV47. My question is concerning the statistics, number of Kenyans who have been evacuated from Lebanon.
My name is Mulindi Keri from Royal Media Services. My question is to you, Madam. 12 Kenyans were arrested in Turkey. Are you aware of these? And they are there with the tourist visas with a promise that they'll get work permits within 14 days of their arrival. Since March 1st, they haven't, and they are stranded. What is the ministry doing on this?
I think the best thing is, could we respond to those first, and then we can take another set of questions.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Balozi, and thank you for those questions. I'll start with a question on women in Saudi Arabia, migrant workers or members of our diaspora who are stranded, to use your language, in Saudi Arabia. We are aware, of course, whenever there is distress, this distress is often reported to us, usually through the embassy, or sometimes this distress reports come to us from social media, which we monitor aggressively and we respond to. Now, of course, you didn't offer me the names of the specific 5 women that you speak about, but we do know and have been working on support to various women who have had children considered to be out of status, and we have worked hard to ensure that we extend every right every Kenyan has. It is a position of our government, a position of our constitution that every Kenyan has the right to their documentation. That includes birth certificates, passports, and so on, and we work very hard to ensure that those are done. So whenever we have distress, and at the moment we are still in the process of preparing birth certificates and other documentation that would allow women in that kind of situation to be able to both be documented but also be evacuated as needed. So to say that whenever we have distress, we need it reported to us so that we can deal with that. And whenever we have those reports, we aggressively deal with them, either from Nairobi or from our embassy in Riyadh. And as you heard earlier, we now have expanded our support in Saudi Arabia, where we now have a consulate in Jeddah, which is an area where a lot of our diaspora live. As far as Lebanon is concerned, as at the 13th of December, when we closed the 3rd phase of our evacuation, over 800 Kenyans had been evacuated and are now safely home. Beyond the evacuations, we do have about 100 women currently housed in various shelters in Beirut that we are working to evacuate. It is a bit of a long process that requires clearance through the general security of the Lebanese government and the preparation of documentation for that evacuation. All of these women have had the documentation from the government of Kenya's side already prepared and are going through the clearance processes to allow them to leave the country. In the shelters, we support them with food, we support with medical care, with counseling, and so on. Upon arrival here in Nairobi, we have had psychosocial counseling and support, and have been able to take the women and a few men who have been evacuated back to their homes in their various counties. On Turkey, allow me to say the following. It is imperative that any Kenyan who leaves the country in search of a job travels with the right documentation. It is extremely dangerous to move from Kenya as a labor migrant or as a worker traveling on a visitor's visa or a tourist visa to expect that once you arrive on the other side, you'll be able to convert that to a work permit. Let me be very clear. This is how we have ended up with a lot of human trafficking cases that we have been on the media over and over again cautioning Kenyans not to do this. It is important that as you explore opportunities in the global labor market, you do that using the right documentation. If you are going to work in Turkey or you are going to work in the UAE or in the US or wherever, leave Kenya while holding a work permit. It becomes extremely difficult and very often impossible to move your documentation and your immigration status from a visitor or a tourist to a worker. So while we support Kenyans who find themselves in various kinds of distress, it's important to underline that security begins with you. And you must be the first one to secure yourself before the government of Kenya can come behind you and support you in your movement within the global labor market. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we will take 3 more questions and we wind up this conversation. Thank you. Lady.
Good afternoon. My name is Mercy Simio from Daily Nation. My question goes to the Prime Cabinet Secretary. What is the Kenyan stance on post-ATMIS transition, and will the country be deploying troops to African Union Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia?
So, Madam PS Roslyn Jogu, Amokomo Modaki from The Standard. Just on the same note about evacuation in Lebanon. We have reports that there are some ladies. There's a lady who has been offered arrest warrant, and she has as well been sent away from the evacuation camp. So what are you doing to bring such cases back to the country?
Could you clarify?
Okay, my question is, there's a case of a lady who is stranded in Lebanon. She was left during the evacuation, the first evacuation that you conducted, and she's saying that she has been issued an arrest warrant because she lacks documentation. Her documents were confiscated by her former employers, and she has as well been sent away from the evacuation camp. So what are you doing to at least address such cases? Another question to PCS. What is the status or the fate of the Haiti mission going forward in terms of funding, bearing in mind that currently it is being funded from the exchequer? For how long will it be from the Kenya's exchequer? For how long will this happen before the UN release funds to facilitate the process?
So I'll take the follow-up question on Lebanon, and then my brother P.S. will probably take up the ATMIS and Haiti questions. Of course, it's very difficult for me to respond to the question of an unnamed Kenyan who has had an arrest warrant issued against them, because there are, of course, very many Kenyans currently living or who have been living in Lebanon. Now, let me say this, however, that we have had on ground for the last month and a half a team an interministerial team from Nairobi and from our embassy in Kuwait that has been handling in supporting our honorary consulate in Lebanon to work on these evacuations. And every Kenyan who registered and has wanted to be evacuated has been issued with documentation and is at various stages of having their exit conducted. What I mean is this: there are the 800 who've already been cleared and left. There are a number of Kenyans who still have hindrances that would keep them from leaving. For example, if a person has a case against them either in the labor court or a criminal matter and so on, then of course clearly they would not be allowed to exit the country until that matter is completed. However, if you supply us the details of this particular Kenyan, we continue to stand ready to support those who are still in need. Let me clarify that while we have completed 3 phases of evacuation, that does not mean that we will not continue to evacuate Kenyans as required. We hope that, and it is really Kenya's position and hope that the ceasefire will continue to hold. But in the meantime, our obligation remains to support the welfare and champion the rights of Kenyans in the diaspora.
Thank you very much. To the questions relating to Kenya's deployments in Somalia and in Haiti, with regard to Somalia, Kenya has been, of course, a troop contributing country under the framework of ADMIS for the last couple of years. We went into Somalia as part of ADMIS to be able to deal with the challenge of terrorism, a challenge that was not only affecting Somalia, but has a direct implication on our peace and security as a country. We have succeeded by and large in degrading the capability of Al-Shabaab, and other terrorist elements, working closely with the Somali authorities. We've seen a marked improvement in the security situation in Somalia, but that exercise is yet to be concluded, and therefore the decision was taken last year that there would be an extension, but that extension would involve the transformation of ADMIS into the Africa Union support mission in Somalia. And the conversations now center around how to finance this deployment. By and large, ADMIS was funded heavily through contributions from the European Union as well as the US, and other agencies, including the African system itself, the African Peace Fund. The current discussions around funding of the post-ADMIS infrastructure revolves around leveraging on Resolution 2719, which was adopted recently by the United Nations Security Council. Under that resolution, Africa Union led peacekeeping missions can be able to leverage on assessed contributions of the UN, which will mean then that we can be able to secure more sustainability of financing of that mission. But I think the long and the short of that is that Kenya will continue to be a troop contributing country. Our hosts, Somalia, has requested that we continue. We are working with other countries that are also troop contributing countries, including new ones such as Egypt, amongst others. I think with regard to Haiti, it is completely untrue that the current deployment of our police is being underwritten by our exchequer. The actual position is that this deployment is being underwritten by the UN Voluntary Fund that was established pursuant to Resolution 2699. That trust fund has now been able to mobilize in excess of $90 million US. That fund, like we have indicated, is sufficient to be able to keep our deployment all the way until March, April of next year. But discussions are going on, as a matter of fact, today at the UN Security Council, where a resolution is being presented with a view to try to transition the financing of our deployment in Haiti, the MSS, from the voluntary mechanism in the direction of a UN peacekeeping mission. Again, the whole desire is to ensure the sustainability of financing of this deployment. And so, number one, it's not accurate to say that it's the Kenyan exchequer that is underwriting our deployment in Haiti. The actual position is that this is underwritten under the framework of the UN voluntary mechanism as adopted in Resolution 2699 of 2023, which is the basis upon which we have that deployment. Thank you very, very much. Asante.
The last one had a very short question.
Naam, Katibu Bwana Sing'oei, ningependa update kidogo kutoka kwako kuhusu jina langu Dickens Luvanda kutoka Hope Media. Ningependa update kidogo kuhusu ushirikiano wa Kenya na Uganda hasa baada ya kisa BCJ kutolewa nchini Kenya katika hali isiyoeleweka, na usalama wa raia wa Kenya ambao raia wa mataifa mengine ambao wanaingia humu nchini hasa kipindi hiki.
Uhusiano wetu kati ya Kenya na Uganda ni uhusiano wa kiundugu, wa kiujirani, ni uhusiano ulio karibu sana. Tuko na uhusiano katika nyanja mbalimbali, na sisi tunatembeleana kila wakati, tunafanya biashara pamoja, na chini ya himaya ya Afrika Mashariki sisi ni kama tunajenga undugu wa karibu under what is called the East African Federation, which is one of the projects that we are working on. Kisa ambacho unakiguzia cha Kiza Besije tayari tuliongelea na tulieleza wazi circumstances under which our security agencies were able to release Mr. Besije to the authorities in Uganda. We have restated time and time again that under the East African Community frameworks, there are obligations on us to facilitate the arrest of persons who may have run afoul of the law within their own countries. And it is within that context that this was facilitated. I think you have since realized that Mr. Besije is standing trial under Ugandan law. And therefore, it is up to the Ugandan government and the Ugandan judicial authorities to be able to make a determination with regard to his rights. Lakini pia kuhakikishia tu wote wanaotembelea Kenya ya kwamba wako salama. Our security agencies are here to protect and to ensure that they carry on their legitimate business in Nairobi, in other cities of our country, without any interference. But I think what we need to be able to caution very, very strongly is that if there are circumstances in which there are very clear requests from our friendly neighbors for support to be able to release certain individuals, I think Kenya will not stand back from being able to honor these requests, particularly if these requests, are based on the framework of the East African community. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, PCS and PS. I think this brings to the end of this very engaging conversation. I want to thank our friends from the media for their time and very meticulous questions they have raised. The PCS has made an undertaking that the statement will be released to you in full detail. So if there are any areas of clarification, I'm sure we are in town and we should be able to seek that in the course of the day with our media team. Where is Agum? She's there. Please, if there's anything that is that you want to cross-check once again, she's up there, and therefore do have a very good afternoon and Merry Christmas, unless Your Excellency has the last word. Is there a last word? I was bringing this conversation to a closure and wishing each one of us a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. I thank you.
That's good enough.